This is Max and Keith from BANTAMWEIGHT. We're going to go ahead and break down our new song, Fall Away, in the original demo session in Logic. And by we, I mean Keith.
Let's jump into it. All right, first thing we're going to start off with is the intro where Max's keys come in. And that is made up of a lot of sounds. Now, neither of us are producers and neither of us are sound designers. So the best thing we are able to do is just stack already existing sounds because we're not good at this. So first things first, here's the actual sound. And that is comprised, is that the right word? Comprised?
That's a word.
That's a word. That is made up of this piano, 2 pianos actually, 3 pianos. Oh, 4 pianos. Wait, no. Yeah, so we have 3 pianos and then a classic electric piano. And there's the system overload. We're going to be seeing that quite a bit. And then we have the beyond overdrive, which is, that's really what's taking up the most real estate. Everything else is just giving it a little more shimmer on top of it. And then we have some, I mean, you can barely hear it. I don't even know why it's in there. And then we got some more system overload. Then we got this liquid breath flute. And on top we have this, at the highest note, I don't know what that note is, but there's the system overload. But that note is just to accent that very top note every time Max plays it. So if we solo everything except for the overdrive. That overdrive takes over everything. So everything else is just giving it more body and system overload. So we're going to be seeing that quite a bit. But anyway, that's the first sound is Max's keys. So let's move on to the hits. Now, buckle up because we are going to be seeing a whole lot of system overload. Now, this has been separated into high, the hits chords high and the hits chords bass. I don't know if that's incredibly necessary. That's just how it is. It's made up of, we have our high synth lead that's going over the top. And there's the system overload. There's that system overload. And as we go down, we start getting into more. We finally start hitting the choirs after we have a bunch of synths and strings. And then we have the female choir and this gospel choir, which is just. And there's that system overload.
This is really
we're not working with very high tech instruments here, so. And there's that system overload. And a lot of people are probably thinking, why don't you just bounce it as audio and then you won't have the system overload problem? Well, it's because things keep changing until the very end. Literally, when we were in the studio, we were changing things. So yes, that would be smarter, but then we go into the bass. It's a lot of the same. A lot of brass more than any sort of voice. Like the highs have more higher end synths and choirs going on, whereas the bottom end of it is very heavy bass sounds and vintage brassy stuff. Let's just listen to that again. It all comes together to sound like this. And there's that system overload. All right, so those are the hits. So let's get into the riff. So as you can see, the riff is made up of a bunch of different sections, which means these are the parts of the riff that I play with my feet. Riff max 3 is what he plays, max 3 and 4 is what he plays with his hands and his pads, and we just separated the entire riff. We sampled it out and then figured out who has the ability to play what in what particular section. So let's jump into it. So our first sample is actually the bass that's being played, which Max plays on his keyboard. So that's the first thing that's played on Max's keyboard. And then we move into what I play with my feet, which is this sound sample, into this sound sample. Now, this is a lot's going on here. That's just a delayed piano for a little bit of a bright touch on the beginning of that hit. There's going to be a lot of brass hits that come in and out. And there's just like a bell sound that peeks through at the very end, which sounds like... Next, it goes into Max's sample, which is this. Which is a big old fat sounding chord, which is just made up of a bunch of samples. Again, a lot of these sounds, which are just single sounds, are made up of groups of 5 or 6 samples. And then that leads into Max's fourth sample, which is this. That's just made up of a bunch of high-pitched again, just a stacking of 5 or 6 samples. And then that leads into this riff that Max plays on his pad, which then leads into my sample, which I play on my feet, which is made up of just a bunch of different sounds again. Things that were chopped up and manipulated, pitched, and moved around. So far, our riff sounds like this. Which leads back into the bass riff that Max plays with his left hand. Then this leads to my 6th sample that I play with my feet, which was just a bunch of chopped up sounds. And I got to the point where I was so lazy with chopping stuff up, I didn't even bother with crossfading, so you can hear the clipping through a lot of these, which was probably a mistake on my end. But yeah. Now, that leads into a big old brassy hit. That's all that sample is just 2 brass hits. Put the beginning of them, I think it was reversed, and then I just chopped off the tail of it. Not sure why, but that's what it is. And then we have this cool little ting sound right off the bat, which is tuned cymbals. And then this leads to some orchestral hits and some more brass hits. And I played that with my feet, which leads into this little riff right here, which has my favorite sound sample, which is that 80s sound that was in a bunch of like 80s hip hop. I don't know what genre it was in actually, but I snuck it in there. And then that leads to the left-handed bass riff again. This leads us into this ascending arpeggiated riff, which was, I believe, yeah, this is my voice. I forgot I put that in there. So that's my voice that's chopped up and pitched. It was actually 2. I separated it, I pitched it down, then I pitched it up. And then it's this one on top of that, which is just a lead dirty synth, and then a piano on that as well. And then all these sound samples that I'm not exactly sure what that is, but it ends up to this choir. So that ascending arpeggiated riff leads us into my favorite part of the entire riff, which is the whip into the lion's roar. Now let me see if I can find which is the whip. So there's the whip, but the whip pans. Nope, that's also my scream. Yeah, so the whip pans from the right side to the left, and then the tiger roar is panned center, I think. Right. So Max plays that with his, so that he plays that on his pad. And then that leads us into this. It goes into these orchestral hits. Yeah. And again, you can hear me being too lazy to actually crossfade, which I do not recommend, but so you can hear all of the clipping of the sample. And then that leads us into a really nice orchestral string rise, which was pitched up and pitched down in 2 separate. Just to give it a little more body. And then our final hit is a bunch of sounds stacked on top of each other and cut up and pitched around. That was a choir sample and a cathedral organ. What is this? I'm not exactly sure what that is, but it's in there. Oh, there's my scream again. It's not even, it wasn't even recorded with high quality microphones. I'm pretty sure this is like on the laptop microphone. Yeah, so that is everything that's in the riff, broken down as fast as I could. What's that, like 18 minutes of breaking down just one riff? So let's go into the verse. The verse is much more simple. It's mostly just chords. Made up of 2 different pianos. And then for attack on the beginning, it's made up of an orchestral string pluck, which is this. And then Max's keys come over the top of that. And that's about it.
We got to dive into that percussion track.
The percussion track?
It's your mouth sound.
Oh, yeah, this is the percussion on top. Is me saying to chaka chaka over and over and over again 4 times. And it's just panned a bunch of different ways. I forgot about that. Now let's go to verse 2, because in verse 2 a vocal sample comes in. There it is. So this line was a vocal sample that I took and then pitched all over the place. And then it's doubled. System overload. So let's get into the chorus. The chorus is pretty basic. This is the chorus, but really in this song, the chorus is actually the riff. Is made up of the chorus is a little more textural and laid back because we wanted that dynamic of going into the riff to be a lot bigger than the actual chorus. So it's made up of this swelling arpeggiated synth and a pad. And then we also have the chords. Which again, we have the pizzicato strings for a little percussive movement in there. And then we have these are the same vocal samples that I took for the verse, and they're just playing these chords over the top of the chorus. And one thing I forgot to mention is that in the actual riff, this vocal pad which plays in the background to give a little more support, which was in Logic. There is a choir, this gospel choir, that it pronounces "oh yeah," so it's just reversed. Then we have this high string, this high tremolo on, I don't think tremolo, trill. I don't think that's the right vibrato. But here's the choir. This is the "oh yeah" backwards. The woo. And yeah, that's about it. That's everything for the verse, chorus, and the riff. And now here's hits section 2, which nothing's different here. These are the exact hits. Everything is the exact same as the hits in the beginning, just different chordal variations. There's the system overload. But yeah, that's basically it. There's nothing except for the big chorus where we will not be able to get through. Yeah, there's no way. Yeah. So yeah, that's basically everything. Low battery, and I think that wraps everything up. Ends with the outro on the piano. Nothing special there, just a piano. And then
That's not gonna work.
Yeah, that's not gonna work. So what happens when you produce on a laptop? But yeah, that's everything. I don't have anything else to add. Do you have anything to add?
I don't, but thank you for watching my session breakdown of my song.
Yeah, hope you enjoyed it. That's all 415 samples or whatever they're called.
Samples, synths, instruments.
Yeah, a lot went into this song. It took a long time. Took a long time to learn. Took a long time to play. Took a long time to record. If you ever wonder why it takes us so long to put music out, this is why. It's a big mistake. Anyway, my name's Keith.
My name is Keith. Thank you.